Do you want to know how to make a time-lapse video on the DJI Osmo like a boss? Well, check this out.
So how to create time-lapse videos like a boss with the DJI Osmo. So there's a lot to cover here, so let's get started right away. What we're going to walk through is basically I'm going to go through the options that are available for a time-lapse with the DJI Osmo. Then we're going to look at how to set up for a typical time-lapse sequence on the DJI Osmo. Then we'll go through each of the 5 options that are available. Then next we look at the pros and cons of each of those 5 options. And then lastly, we finish off with a conclusion. So like I said, lots of stuff to go through. So let's get started. So let's start with the options that are available when you have the DJI Osmo. So if we start off right at the end with a time-lapse video, there's basically 2 types of time-lapse videos that you can do with the DJI Osmo. And I'm simply going to split them into 2. Like there's video-based time-lapse video where you're starting off with a video that you've shot on the DJI Osmo. And then there is photo-based time-lapse video where you're starting off with photos that you've taken and then stitch them up into a sequence. So that's the first differentiation. So in the first option, all you simply do is you shoot your DJI Osmo, then you bring it into an editing program such as Adobe Premiere Pro, Final Cut Pro, any video editing software that can handle DJI Osmo videos, and you simply speed up the video to create your time-lapse video. The next option is a photo-based option where you start off with a sequence of photos that have been shot on the DJI Osmo, and then they are processed in camera. So the DJI Osmo actually processes these photos to create the time-lapse video. The next option again is photo-based. So you take a sequence of photos, but then take them through additional steps in what we call post or post-production, which is typically on a computer. And then the first of those in-post options is either go through the DJI Media Maker or you go through an additional photo image processing step to really enhance the photos that have come off the DJI Osmo. And then with that option, after the photos have been processed in Lightroom, or it could even be in Photoshop, it again goes through the DJI Media Maker to create the time-lapse video. And then the last option we'll look at is again photo-based in-post, photos processed in either Lightroom or any other image processing software like Photoshop, and then it goes through an additional video editing software such as Adobe Premiere Pro, or it could even be Final Cut Pro to create the time-lapse video. So I know at this stage it looks very, very busy, but don't worry, we're going to break down each of these options and go through each one. So the first one, if we can just think of them as follows. So we're going to go through 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. All right, so let's start with the first one, video-based time-lapse video. So I've got an Adobe Premiere Pro project that's currently open. We brought our DJI Osmo video that we've shot, and I'm just going to drag it to this new item icon here to create a brand new sequence. So it pops over here in this program panel, and if I just scrub through, this is basically a short 2.5-minute video of people who are just walking through the park. And what I want to do is basically speed this up to about 10 seconds worth of time-lapse video. Okay, now because we've shot this in the DJI Osmo's D-Log format, that means we've got the freedom and the flexibility to color grade it even further and really make these colors pop. So all I'm going to do is just call up the lumetric color effect, drag that. In this case, I can drag it straight onto the footage because there's nothing much we're doing apart from applying color correction. I want to come to about the middle of the video, which kind of represents, you know, the middle of the kind of color scheme we want here. And then in the creative, I'm simply going to click this 12 down, and then in the browse, So now all I have to do is just identify one of these 20 LUTs, beautiful LUTs that come from the Everest cinematic style color grading LUTs for the DJI Osmo. I'm really spoiled for choice, but I'm just going to go with this neutral punch LUT. Open that, and this is what it does to the image. So that's a little bit too powerful for my liking. So I like the colors, but maybe a little bit too powerful. So all I have to do here is just simply reduce the intensity to, say, about 80 and have a look at what that does. So that's before and that's after. So, this is a matter of taste. For me, this looks pretty good if I'm to do a time lapse of this. Then all I have to do, I've done my color correction, 2 simple clicks, load the LUT, reduce the intensity. In this case, I'm happy with the image already. The next thing, I just want to make any trims in terms of where I want the sequence to start. So round about just before the first person walks into the frame. So say there, so I can trim all of this off. Not worry about that. Ripple, delete that to get rid of that. So now, as I scroll through, we see the first people walking into the frame. And then right at the end here, we can see the group almost disappearing. So all I have to do in Adobe Premiere Pro is right-click on the footage, then select speed duration. Now you can do one of 2 things. You can either type in the amount of the percentage you want to increase this footage by, or you simply type in the duration. In this case, we know we want about 10 seconds worth of video. Then you click OK, and our footage is now being compressed into these 10 seconds. So that's already a time-lapse video. And then all we have to do is render this file. Click Save, and then click Export. So we're going to come back and have a look at what that looks like. Okay, our file is almost done encoding, and there we have it. So now I'm just going to go to the folder. So now we have the file that we've just created. I'm going to open that, and you can see it's 10 seconds long. And if I just play that back, let me just make this slightly smaller, put that in the corner, play it back. And there we have it. 10 seconds compressed from 2 minutes of video that we shot on the DJI Osmo. So on to method number 2. Method number 2 is a photo-based method, and processing of the time-lapse is done in camera, so inside the DJI Osmo itself, and we get the time-lapse video straight out from there. So let's see how this is done. So the first thing you want to do is you want to make sure you're in camera mode. Then next, you want to select manual mode. Now, this is a personal preference of mine because when I'm in manual mode, I've got more control of the exposure. And I want the same kind of exposure from beginning to the end of the time-lapse sequence, as opposed to choosing auto, for example, where the exposure is being automatically adjusted by the camera itself. In that case, you're going to get variations in exposure, and some images are going to look lighter and some are going to look darker than others. So I prefer the manual mode because that gives me better control. Next, you obviously want to select the time-lapse mode. And then all that is left is very easy in the DJI Osmo. You simply need to then select your interval, which is the frequency of the images to be taken. So 1 every 5 seconds in this example. Next, you choose the duration of how long. This is not the final video, but how long you want this interval to last for. So taking a photo every 5 seconds for 30 minutes will result in a video that is 12 seconds long. Then all you have to do is click Start, and then you let the Osmo do its thing whilst you wait. Now, what I've often noticed when doing a time lapse is every so often the Wi-Fi signal might disappear. It goes in and out, and you see no photos, or it appears as if no photos are being taken, and the DJI Go app seems to be stuck on the same image. But what I've realized is the time-lapse sequence is actually taking place within the DJI Osmo, and this is just some form of interference. I don't know if it's something that can be sorted out in the next firmware upgrade, but it does seem a little bit concerning when first you see this no Wi-Fi signal, but just know that the sequence is going on. If you try to reconnect, you'll find that the time lapse has indeed continued to go in the background, regardless of whether you've lost signal or not. So don't despair. So once your time lapse is done, this is the screen you get to. Now you might be tempted to click start to view the time lapse that you've just shot, but if you do that, you're actually starting a brand new time-lapse sequence that is also going to last for 30 minutes. So rather than press start, if you just want to have a quick review of what you've just shot, you simply click this playback button, and then you can start viewing the time-lapse that you've just shot. Obviously, the quality is going to be slightly different because you're only viewing this through the app. Now, all that is left to do in this method is to simply go to your media folder. Inside the media folder, you will find a copy of the time-lapse video that you've just shot. So if we open that, we can now view the time-lapse video. So the 12 seconds has been shot, and this is it right here. Now, if we do a quick check, you see that the resolution of this video is only 1280 by 720p. So that's a little bit of a dampener, because when you consider nowadays, this is the size of video that we've got, 720p, whereas 4K is becoming the norm. So that's a little bit of a downer there, that you're only getting a 720p resolution file straight out of the camera. If you look at it another way, it's almost, it's 1/9 of the size of 4K. So that was method number 2. So next we look at method number 3, which again is a photo-based method that we take through post-production, and it utilizes the DJI Media Maker to create the time-lapse video. So let's see how this happens. So first of all, you want to head on over to the DJI website, and if you haven't already got this little app that is available for free, all you need to do is to simply download it. You will find on this page something that looks like this, and obviously depending on whether you're using Windows or you're using Mac system, you download your DJI Media Maker. Now this version might have changed by the time you're watching this video. It doesn't matter, the principle is really the same. So all you have to do is you open up the DJI Media Maker. So the way this works is, if you head back to the folder that contains the time-lapse we've just done, you'll find there's another folder called Time-lapse. If you open that folder, you will find the sequences of photos that we've just shot. So all you need to do is to grab hold of this folder and drag it into this DJI Media Maker. It immediately recognizes that it's a time-lapse sequence. It asks you where you want to save the time-lapse video, in which case we want to save it in this renders of time-lapses. You can rename the file, click save, and then click start. And then you just sit back, have a cup of coffee, and come back when it's done, or tea for that matter. So after a few short minutes, we see that the process has been completed. And if we check in the folder that we've saved to, we see we have a new file here, skies.mov. So I'm going to open that. Then I'm going to click play. And already I can see there's a huge difference in the quality of this video compared to that default 1280 by 720 that came out of the DJI Osmo. And the reason for that is, if I just check on the dimensions and details of this video file, we see that it is a 4000 by 2250 pixel video. So this video corresponds to the size of the images that are taken during the time lapse, so resulting in a 4K video. So just by simply using the DJI Media Maker, we're able to improve tremendously the quality of the time lapse video. So that was method number 3. So let's move on to method number 4. I know it looks a little bit busy, but I'll just walk you through again the principle. So it's a photo-based method, images taken with the DJI Osmo. It's a post-production process, so there's a few steps involved there. The images are processed first in Lightroom or Photoshop or any other image processing software that you have. And then it goes back to the DJI Maker, which you've just seen in method number 2, to create the time-lapse video. So let's see how this works. So you want to fire up Lightroom. In this case, I'm using Lightroom 5. And what you want to do is you want to import the folder of all the photos that were taken by the DJI Osmo during the time-lapse sequence. So I've located the folder. Make sure all the photos are checked. And then you simply import. Now, once you've finished importing the photos into Lightroom, what we want to do is we want to enhance the appearance of each image so that we get the most out of the colors that have been captured during this time sequence. Because remember, we're shooting in D-Log. And the workflows may differ, from person to person. But what I typically tend to do is I want to start with the first image, process that as much as I can, develop it as much as I can, make it look really good, and then apply those exact settings to my very last image and then compare what that looks like. If it looks good on both extreme ends of my time lapse, then we're good to go. So let's get into the develop mode. And this is not a video about showing how to use Lightroom. Far from that. It's just a method that is out there. So I'm just going to do a very few quick changes here. So play around with, first of all, let's see what we can do with the maybe lighten that a little bit, add a little bit more contrast, remove some of the shadows just a little bit. But I think the biggest change I want to make is with the sky. I really want the blue to pop out here, so I'm going to increase the vibrance quite a bit. But you see here it's too much yellow, too much green going on, so I'm going to reduce the saturation slightly to about there. Maybe push up my vibrance just a little bit more clarity as well. So have a look at the before and after. So on the left is what I shot, on the right is what I've just developed. And again, this is down to personal taste. I also want to add a little bit of, I just want to bring attention to the sky, what's happening in the sky. So I'm going to add a bit of a vignetting effect, and just a little bit, not that much, but just enough so that we darken all these corners, and we see that the focus is really in the center. So again, let's do a side-by-side comparison. So the sky is on the right, which is where I want the viewer to focus on, starting to look really, really good. So these are the changes I've made to the very first image. So what I normally do is then I copy that. I go edit, copy, and I'll typically just select everything, check all, copy that. And if I go to the very last image in this sequence, if I go edit, paste, I'm very happy with the way it's applied to the very last image. So these settings will work just fine. And then all I have to do now is to apply these settings to all the images. And the way that's done is, again, I copy all the settings from the first image. This time I come into the library, select all the images except for the first one, because we've already applied the changes to the first one. Right click, develop settings, and then click paste settings. So this will apply, as you can see here, it's pasting the same changes to all the images. If we scroll down a little bit and catch up with the processing that's happening in the background, you can see all the changes are being applied to these images. And I mean, these were just a few changes that are made. I mean, you don't really need to do much. And when you do these quite often, it's just It's just a few clicks here, there, you know what you want, and boom. And the changes have been applied to the very last image. Now, all that is left to do is to export these images. And the one thing you have to make sure is you do not change the name of these images. You must keep exactly the same name as what DJI named it, because that will allow you to use the app, the DJI Media App. So we go File, Export. Let's create a new folder here and call it Time-lapse X Lightroom. Then if I choose that, then click Export. All the images are going to be exported to that folder. So we'll come back after that export is done. So after the export is done, if we open this folder that we've just exported to, we'll find all the images that have now been color graded, if you like, in Lightroom. And all we have to do now is to call up the same app, DJI Media Maker App, and then grab the same folder containing those processed images and simply just drag to the app. We select the folder where we want it to go. Let's rename it Skies X Lightroom. Click Save and then start the process. And exactly the same thing that we saw in method number 3, we just have to wait. Okay, so that's done. Now if we go to the folder, we see we now have a Skies XLR, which we've just rendered. And if we click that open and start to play that, should see that this is a lot more vibrant than the previous one. So I have these two videos side by side, and you can see for yourself this one is a lot more sharper. It's got a lot more blue going on, and you know, I could have tweaked these images even further, but just goes to show you the kind of flexibility that you get when you take the images coming out of the DJI Osmo, shot on the D-Log, and then processed in Lightroom. So that was method number 4. We have one more to go, so if you're still with me, congratulations and thank you for sticking around. The last method we're going to cover again is photo-based, and everything happens in post-production. We can take the photos from Lightroom that have been processed, the ones that we just used in method number 4. Instead of going through the DJI Media Maker app, we can come into Premiere Pro with those images. Or if you don't want to mess around with Lightroom, and this is the method I want to show you, you can come straight from the images coming out of the DJI Osmo and we bring them into Adobe Premiere Pro to create the time-lapse video. So let's see how that works. I want to import those images, the ones that haven't been processed, the ones that came straight out of the DJI Osmo. So this is the folder I want. So here are all the images that I want. So I'll just rather click on this folder and then import the whole folder into Premiere Pro. Typically want to grab the first image into the new item bin to create the new sequence. So this way it takes exactly all the dimensions of the image, and then I'll remove that now. Now the next thing is to select all the images and then drag all of these images into the timeline. So as you can see, my default image duration is about 5 seconds or so. Let's have a look. Yeah, it's 5 seconds. So the first thing I want to do is to reduce significantly the duration of each of these images to about a frame each. And there is a shortcut method that I recommend you use, and that is to hold down Command and then press A to select all these images. And again, you want to do the speed duration trick. So right click Go to speed duration. So in this case, we want 1 frame for each image. And then if you select this ripple edit shifting trailing clips option here, what that does is it gets rid of the gap that would be, it gets rid of the gap that is between each of these images. First of all, let's do it without selecting this and you see what I mean. So as you can see, it's left a very big gap between each of these images, and this is not going to work for us. So I'm simply going to undo that, select all the images again, right click, select speed duration. Again, we want 1 frame, and this time we want to select ripple edit shifting trailing clip, so it gets rid of that gap. So when you click OK, you see all of our images, 1 frame per image has been compressed into these 15 or so seconds. And because we've used unprocessed images, we can process them within Premiere Pro, add a little bit more color grading. So I'm simply going to add an adjustment layer, bring that on top of the images, drag that all the way down. Then I'm going to drag the lumetri color effect and apply it to the adjustment layer here. And then in creative, this should be now a piece of cake for you guys, because you know how to apply a color grading LUT to your DJI footage. Simply browse, and again from the brand new Everest LUTs collection, this time I want to select kind of like, let's just go memory lane just for fun. And that's kind of the effect. All that is left for me to do is to render the file. Okay, now that's done. Now if we go into our folder, we see there's a brand new file here, SkiesXAP. If we just play that back, and we can see the same time lapse, but obviously color graded to a yesterday look using one of the color grading LUTs from Everest, cinematic style color grading LUTs. Okay, now that we've seen all the 5 methods, let's go through the pros and cons very quickly of each one. So starting with the very first one, where it's a video based straight through Premiere Pro, speeded up. So the pros, obviously it's a very quick setup. You can achieve 4K video no problem, and it's color gradable because it comes through Adobe Premiere Pro, so you can apply color grading LUT. The cons, however, is there are extra steps involved, obviously, and the file size as well. Now, imagine if you want to compress, let's say, an hour's worth of footage or an hour's worth of shooting. That file is going to be really, really large, and when you try to process that and speed it up in Adobe Premiere Pro, you can run into processing capacity issues depending on the speed of your computer. And again, you know, time lapses can last several hours. So imagine if you're using this method, you're going to end up with a really, really big file. But apart from that, you know, this may be a method you want to consider or not. Next one, the photo-based in-camera processing to get your time-lapse video. With this one, the pros are really, it's a very quick setup. You don't do much. There's no extra steps involved. And you get a reasonable small file size that it's easy to upload to your website, to YouTube, whatever it is. The cons, however, is, you know, it's not color gradable. What you see is what you get, or what you get is fixed kind of thing. And for me, I think the biggest downfall for that is it's only in 720p, which is really, in nowadays when 4K is almost the norm, it's really not enough in terms of quality of video. But, you know, if you're looking for a quick solution, this is probably one to consider. The next one, photo-based in post, where you just take the images straight from the camera into the DJI Maker to create the time-lapse video. So the pros is the app you've seen is a very easy app to use. you get 4K video straight out of that. In fact, it's larger than 4K because it's 4000 by 2250 pixels. Again, the file size is not that bad. The cons is there is an extra step, obviously, this step, although it's an easy step. And there's no color grading capabilities if you use this very method. So that's number 3. Number 4, where you take in the images first through Lightroom and then through the DJI Media Maker to create your time lapse. So the pros here, there's a lot of flexibility for color grading. I mean, Lightroom and Photoshop, those apps, that software is really for image processing. So you can really stretch your images to whatever you want to create 4K images. Again, it uses that very easy app. Downfall is there's many steps, as you saw me, go through it. It's time consuming. So if you've got the time, great. If you don't have the time, maybe this method won't suit you. And then the very last one, actually, I'll just consider the method where it comes through from here to Premiere Pro. So from the camera straight to Premiere Pro and then to the time lapse. Forget about this Lightroom for a moment. The pros is obviously you can apply a LUT color grade. You can get 4K video. The cons, again, there's many extra steps, which can be time consuming if you don't have the time. So it may or may not suit the situation that you're in. So those are the 5 methods, and those are my take on the pros and cons of each method, which leads me to the conclusion. So for me, I think it really all depends about what quality of video are you after for your time-lapse video. How much time do you have on your hands? What software do you have at your disposal? And really, what do you want to use the time-lapse video for? So if it's just a quick and dirty time-lapse video, then maybe straight out of the camera can work. But if you really want to use it for professional use, then maybe it's maybe worth the time to process each image in Lightroom or Photoshop before taking it to either DJI Media Maker or bring it into Adobe Premiere Pro. And similarly, you can again apply a LUT. So it really all depends on the end use. So there's no right or wrong method, but at least now you've got the power to create a time lapse on the DJI Osmo
like a boss. And guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and leave a question down below. Don't forget to download your free color grading LUT.